Hello, everybody, and it is the cool down room. A little bit later than usual, but we are here to talk about the Bahrain Grand Prix and everything off season. Bowser, how are you feeling after the Bahrain Grand Prix?
How am I feeling? Well, it's great to be back. A new season, exciting times, reset the grid. It could be a complete mixed up order. We'll get to that.
Shall I cry now or
Yeah,
later?
no. Yeah, we'll get to that. But either way, very good to be back. Very good to be back with you as well, my friend. Very good,
Always a
and
pleasure to have you along,
nice
buddy.
nice to see everyone. And yeah, feel free, like I said, share it, make comments. We're happy to talk to you guys throughout, and yeah, we'll get some everyone else reaction as well, and we'll put that in. So
Absolutely,
that'd
yeah.
be great.
If you're watching live, and feel free to drop us a comment and stuff. It'd be brilliant to answer your questions and stuff. So.
Absolutely. Right, let's get started. So off season, I guess we're going to start with
I'm going to start off
on the.
season. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah, well, yeah.
biggest news of the off season is probably Lewis Hamilton to Ferrari.
Or
Big.
not this year.
Well, not
Next
this
year.
year, for next year. But
Yes.
yeah. How does that make you feel, Bowser? Big Mercedes fan, after all.
I, I am a big Mercedes fan, not going to lie. And it's. And I'm a big Lewis fan. And I'm a big Lewis fan from the point of, when he was back in karts and he was appearing on Blue Peter, and I watched him in F2. And, so whatever you want to say, glory hunting or whatever from his 7 titles, I'll remind you of the fact I was watching him before he's even in F1. So, just get that clearly out of the way first, if anyone clear any issues. Do you know what? It's one of those things that he's mentioned a couple of times, like the iconic like driving for a Scarlet car, and it's one of those things that I always heard him say, and I was like, yeah, I'm sure he'd probably want to, but I can't ever imagine seeing it.
Yeah. One of
So
those things I
now,
think every driver talks about wanting to drive for Ferrari at some
yeah,
point, don't
exactly.
they?
And he's a big enough name that him going to Ferrari isn't really a shock in if you take out the emotion side of it. But it's shocking to actually think that's going to be reality now. That's very strange. So, do you know what? It'll probably help me have more of a soft spot for Ferrari in total, but it won't change my opinion that I'm a big Merc fan. I don't think that's going to change. I'm a massive George Russell fan as well. I think he's a great lad. I think he's a really fast driver as well. So I'll still be supporting him, Mercedes, and whoever goes into that seat as well, which is also very, very exciting to think about. So, yeah.
Absolutely. We'll move on to that point in just a second. But I mean, you've got to think about Mercedes at the moment, and what this says about what Lewis thought about the car that has come out for this race and things like that, and the season ahead. The fact that before he'd even driven it, he's gone, nah, I'm out. Like, how bad were the simulations for that car and in the future there that he's gone out the door before they've even begun?
It's strange because all the talk we've heard has been that the simulations and everything are much better. The car's much more drivable. You could definitely see a massive difference from last year's cars, and the last 2 years worth of cars that have been distinctly disappointing from a Mercedes very, very high standard point of view. So I do see where you're coming from, but at the same time, I have a feeling this decision by him at this point in his career is probably more emotional than data-driven. I think this is probably realised this is going to be his last opportunity to actually drive for Ferrari. So if he was going to make the move, it would have to kind of be there at a point, and because they've got Leclerc over there, they've clearly built a lot of the team around him, and he's there wonder kid for the next, however many years, decade probably, that you could, they're kind of seeing him as the next Michael Schumacher long-term off that opportunity. So I think Lewis going in there, he can maybe have an opportunity to win that 8th title if he hasn't already done it with Mercedes this year, which again, we'll get on to a little bit longer. But yeah, so I think it's exciting. It'll be very interesting to see how he compares to Leclerc. And yeah, I think it was more of a do it now or never, and he, jumped. And yeah, the fact that no drivers moved over this winter was distinctly boring. So the fact that someone like that has moved, such a big name, someone who's so established in a team, he can do that for a couple of seasons before Ferrari get their next wonder kid in and have both seats secured for so long. I think it was now or never, and I think he took it. So great.
Fair, and let's hope it actually brings us some decent racing in the years to come. Please no more Max domination. Please no more Max domination. But yeah, the interesting thing as well from this is what's going to happen to Carlos Sainz.
Mhm.
Obviously, I rate Carlos Sainz quite highly as a driver. I think
So,
it'll be an absolute travesty if he ends up off the grid. I think on a worse scale than everyone was talking about when Perez was at Fresca being off of the grid. I
great.
think that Carlos is still young in his career and he's got a good opportunity to show his talent still. And we'll touch on his race this weekend just gone as well in a little bit. But he's got the skills. He was the only driver to beat Red Bull last year. Let's not
Mhm.
forget that. So
And
yeah,
very smart and intelligent way of doing it as well.
exactly. So,
Mm.
but is he going to be a candidate for that Merc seat? I don't
I,
think so.
I think he has to be. I like in the conversation. I'm not necessarily saying he's going to get it, but I
You look
think
at
he's
the
got
other
to.
names that are being thrown around with it though, and you're like,
Alonso's
oh,
probably the other bigger one, or again, we'll probably come back to it, but Verstappen is another one. Because obviously Merck have a lot of weight to throw around with the brand, and with George Russell, they've got their equivalent of Leclerc, I suppose. They're kind of like we're pinning our future on, and Lewis was the big icon name, so essentially they're probably looking for another. I think Alonso fits that bill probably best, but yeah, and the thing is, every time we think about Alonso, it's like, yeah, but how many more years is he going to do it? And then he keeps on rocking up and being epic. So I don't know when he's going to run out of juice, which,
I mean,
he
the man's
hasn't
a
seemed to
machine.
yet.
The
He is.
man
He is
is a machine.
absolutely. Yeah.
The rumor
So,
that I've
no
heard
idea.
going round is that the seat is actually Kimi Antonelli's to lose.
Yes.
A
Okay.
big wonder kid that's coming through the ranks and is in F2 this year. I think
Yeah.
from what I'm hearing, Mercedes are worried about losing him like they did Max
Hmm.
Verstappen, and so that they might just try and put him into there to fill that gap. Whether or not, as you say, they want someone more experienced in the end, I don't know. But that's the rumor going around, is that he's one of the front runners for the seat. Um, Obviously, he didn't do amazing in the opening F2 race of this season. I don't know if you
No.
caught any of that at all, but
I
uh,
did, yeah.
down in, I think, 17th and 18th, him and his teammates. So, but it looked like it was a lot to do with how the team set up the car as well, more than just on him. So hopefully they kind of all get together a bit better as the year goes on and we can see something from him. But it'd be interesting to see if a rookie. I can't think of a time where a rookie has gone straight into a top team like that since Lewis Hamilton. So
Yeah. No. Fair point. Yeah, even Leclerc had that year at Sauber, Alfa Romeo. That's very true. Yeah, Kim, and to be fair, Kimi Antonelli, when you think about here, he's skipped F3. He's gone straight in from the Euro formula, so the
yeah.
tier underneath F3, straight into F2, which is almost unheard of in a modern day sense. So
Well, last
you can
last
cut.
person to do a jump of that kind of magnitude was Max Verstappen from F3
Yeah,
to F1. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so
yeah,
so
Sebastian
yeah,
Vettel actually. Sorry, a comment from the audience there. Sebastian Vettel is also a name I have heard in connection to
yeah,
the
yeah.
Mercedes seat. With the other names on offer at the moment, I don't think it's likely, but it would be nice to see Seb back in the sport as always, definitely.
It would. If we're just throwing names out there, Albon's got to be considered in that Mercedes family at Williams.
I don't know why. I thought you were going. If we're just throwing names out there, Mika Hakkinen would be a great. I don't know why. I just thought that's where you were going with it. He's never
David
said he's
Coulthard.
retired. He's always left the door open. So, but yeah, no, Alex Albon is a great shout. Yeah, I mean we've got to touch on the elephant in the room with the whole Red Bull saga ongoing at the moment, and the rumours that Max might leave the team. What on earth that would do to the driver market, I have absolutely no idea. If Max leaves that team, do they still get rid of Perez? Do they do a full sweep? Like, can you imagine that? If coming to next season we have like Ricardo Albon lined up at Red Bull, and I'm a massive Red Bull fan suddenly, and
Or or it could be Ricardo Sonoda, and they're having their little squabble scrap
yeah,
for like first and second. That would be interesting.
Sonoda goes into the back of Ricardo at Baku.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we honestly don't know what's going to happen. It'll be very interesting to see. And to be fair, you make a good point there, Lucy. Yeah, they did bring an old German back into the Merc fold before. Michael Schumacher didn't really work out the way he'd hoped, but maybe Seb would be a bit better off. Even so, I'd still love to see Seb back in the sport and on the podium again. But I think it's very unlikely now that all this has happened. I think if it wasn't for all this stuff at Red Bull and things as well, and I don't know. I, I don't think there's like smoke without fire here. There's obviously been talks with Mercedes for all this to have come up. Is it
Well,
possible he goes to Merc? Surely not.
he's just been seen chatting to Toto, but they are actually good friends anyway. So it's could be something a little bit misleading on that
True.
sense. But I mean,
it all kicked off as well recently with Carlos Sainz back to Red Bull, didn't it? Because his dad was seen talking to Horner and that.
well, his well, yeah, exactly. Like the media are going to pick up on any little bit and pieces like that. So, but Carlos Sainz Senior has been part of the Red Bull family from the rally side of it and winning the Dakar rally for decades. He's always been, and hence, Carlos Sainz Jr. was originally in Toro Rosso with Max Verstappen at the time. So, it's either way, they're kind of that fuel is quite an obvious one. It's not like a big shocker, but I just don't think that. I think realistically, going back to Carlos Sainz, I think his most likely thing will be to go to Sauber. I think he'll go there because he is the constantly named the big sort of driver that Audi want. And obviously Audi are taking over Sauber in 2026. So if he's going to move there...
That's the other rumour floating around, is that Audi are looking at pulling out. So...
Yeah, and Ford are looking at pulling out of Red Bull. So...
F1 are suddenly going to be like, oh, Cadillac, we wish we'd let them in.
Yeah. Well, that's another story from over the winter as well.
Oh, exactly. We'll get onto that in a second.
We will get onto that in a second.
I think we're going to need to do some kind of driver predictions video for next season. Because
there's too much.
Who knows what it's going to be like by then? And I reckon we could end up with some very interesting grids. Maybe we can even try and get Wibsy out of his hole on the ground and get him on here to do a prediction or something.
I love the way that it's gone from a whole year of basically no driver changes, has basically just created this like pension pot that's just feels like it's about to explode for next year, and you're just gonna get Kevin Magnussen in a Red Bull, something stupid
you're
like
gonna
that.
have Kevin Magnussen alongside Logan Sargent at Red Bull.
Yeah, and Grosjean coming back into Mercedes. Toto finally giving him that drive he promised him.
Turns out that yes, Grosjean was the GOAT all along.
Yeah, that guy is on fire.
Oh, bad.
Sorry. Hey, he survived. He's fine. He's fine.
Oh yeah, he's just a little burn. It's still good.
Yeah.
Oh god, we're horrible people. Sorry, Grosjean,
yeah.
if you ever watch this. He's not.
We love you guys. We love you, mate.
We do.
Yeah, we do.
Come on the show.
Yeah, please do. Please do.
But yeah, no. Moving on anyway from driver talk, because we could talk about driver rumours for
yes, exactly.
until the cows come home. Let's talk about Andretti.
Yes.
What
or the lack
on
of
earth of a mess are Formula One doing with this? Like, I honestly don't understand the logic behind it. They want manufacturers in the sport. They've openly said they want manufacturers in the sport. The fans want it. It'll be more entertaining, and they've not done it. I just it's just down to the team's greed at this point. It's ridiculous. And Andretti were willing to pay a huge buy-in fee as well to get into the sport. It's absolutely ridiculous. And if for example Audi pull out and Ford are gone, as I said, they're going to absolutely regret the hell out of rejecting the Cadillac bid. Whether or not they'll change their mind when the engine's supposedly ready, I don't know. But wasted opportunity in my opinion.
Yeah, you've got a few issues with that. So what's kind of made this even more sour is the fact that the FIA originally approved it. So basically, that was the teaser of, oh, okay, maybe it is happening. Sounds like the teams and the FIA have primarily rejected it. There was a few other bits and pieces, but primarily down to the fact that they didn't feel like the Andretti name would add anything commercially wise. So that's talking
ridiculous considering the history of Andretti in motorsport. Let's face it.
David, calm. I'm fact reading at the moment. Fact reading. We'll get to the emotions at the end of it. So yeah, they don't feel that Andretti as a team, as an 11th team, will add to the value of the. You think of F1 as a product, and they don't feel like the extra cost to F1, i.e., prize money, transportation, logistics, that side of things, making sure they've got the extra pressure of fitting another team into the pit lane, fitting another team into press conferences, all of that stuff is worth what Andretti are actually, or an 11th team as a whole is going to bring to the sport. I agree. I don't get me wrong. I'm with you on this. Don't don't worry. So that's where a lot of the issues lied with their bid. The other thing that I picked out of the report that I read was that Andretti were planning to work with Cadillac, and Cadillac are owned by General Motors, the biggest US car company that there is, and they would be eventually building an engine, but that engine wouldn't be ready until 2028, I believe. Therefore, until that point, Andretti would be reliant on one of the other engine manufacturers to supply them an engine, which again, the F1 FIA were fine with, but the F1 company, Liberty Media, all the teams, all of that stuff, they decided that that's having another customer engine in the sport again isn't going to add value to it. It's not going to, that's not what they want to do. Like you said before, they want to add more engine manufacturers in to have more sort of diversity around. So that's the other thing. They kind of saw that as a bit of a weak point in the bid, if you will. Right now, that's kind of that's the black and white of it. We're gonna bring get those fists up.
Let me at him.
David, let me bring some emotion into this, right? And I'm gonna throw other facts from a fan's point of view at this, right? 11th team. That is 2 more cars that can cause absolute shenanigans. Create interest in the actual, and that's just the race itself, qualifying shocks, things you weren't expecting. You've got an extra 2 more driver slots on the grid from the conversation we were just having a second ago about where all these drivers going to fit in. Is there going to be some big name that misses out, like Ricciardo did last year for the first half? That kind of thing. A massive name, which is such a shame. He doesn't want to leave F1, but he's going to, unfortunately, because there's literally no more room left. There's a seat, 2 more seats available there, and another reserve driver seat. Bringing through juniors, all of that element to it as well. You've got, I know, a point that I've mentioned, or you've brought up to me many a point, extra sponsors coming into F1. There's your logistics issue solved. Extra interest and an American team. They're adding more American races. I know you've got Haas already, but another fully American team, and from a name that is iconic within motorsport in the US, in Andretti, obviously headed by Mario Andretti, a former Formula One world champion. It's absolutely ludicrous. I'm angry that they've rejected this, because like I said, from a fan's point of view, it's disgusting that they don't feel that there's value in that product being Andretti added to the product that is F1. It's absolutely insane. David, go.
No, you've touched on a lot of the points that I feel there already. I mean, one of the excuses F1 also tried to throw out there was there wasn't the infrastructure really in place. Well, I'm sorry, but ought to be a F1 grade track, you're supposed to have 12 pit garages, so that shouldn't be a problem. So unless F1 have been skimping on their own evaluations, then there should be more than enough infrastructure for Andretti to be involved. And also,
They used to have 24 cars on the grid and that was only 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's no issues.
Tracks can easily do that.
Yeah. Well, think Monaco's the worst one for that, right? Surely Monaco must be the worst one with that. I didn't hear of any issues when there were 24 cars on the grid at Monaco.
Exactly. And then further on to that, the whole customer engine point of view. Well, it was always said that the engine they'd have to have would be Renault, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look who's
Alpine
really
Renault,
struggling at the moment. It's Renault. What could Renault really use? More data on their engine, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's not rocket science.
And the investment of a team buying their engine, the money that would come back from and the profit they'd make on selling that engine.
Yeah, it's absolutely ludicrous. I genuinely cannot see a downside for anyone other than if you're an F1 team boss going, oh wow, I'm going to have less money or I have another car to compete against. Like, so what? Grow up. Like, just get
That's
on with it. You're in a sport. It's supposed to be a competition.
that's
Jesus
this thing.
Christ.
Playing devil's advocate there on if I put myself in Toto or Horner or anyone else's shoes as a team principal of an F1 team, right? They're diluting, as in they're gonna spread out the cost of the prize pot. Okay, so F1 teams have to obviously, part of the reason why they've rejected it, or at least suggested highly that F1 as a company rejects it, is partly down to the fact that for winning the championship, you'll get a few less millions of pounds, because they'll have to pay down to 11th a certain amount of prize money for competing. Rather than just down to 10. So everyone will get diluted and less money as a whole. However, that is only surely applicable if the prize pot stays the same. And they have to, pay out for an 11th team's prize money. So what I don't understand is F1 are going to obviously, like I said, they said no commercial value added in the team because, all of these issues. But with all the extra sponsors coming in, all these extra races that are coming in, especially the ones in the US, surely their profitability is going up and up and up. Therefore, and the more TV rights they'll get from all of this, that's all great. So what they're actually saying is we're too greedy to increase the prize pot so there is no dilution of the money going out to the other teams. That's how I read that, to be completely honest.
I can definitely see it from that point of view. I think it's really weird that, as well, we have a sport where the teams have this kind of input. Like,
Oh yeah.
can you imagine if the Premier League was run like this? Like, oh, Norwich City's been promoted. Oh, yeah, but we don't want them to be promoted because we actually want to reduce it by another 2 spaces on the Premier League table so we get a bit more money. Is that okay? So they can't go up.
No.
You wouldn't get that bullshittery. Like, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Can we coin that adjective, bullshittery? That's great. I love that.
Yeah. I'll start my own dictionary, but honestly, it's complete bullshittery.
I'm with you. I'm totally with you. It's absolutely bizarre that the teams have so much. I mean, like I said, they continually say that it was the F1, company that rejected it, not the teams. But they are. You know that there's a whole teams association that's putting their points across very strongly. And they've been in the past, teams threatening to pull out. Red Bull, the most recent one, but creating alternative, race series to go and race in, and rivals series, whatever. But yeah, it's absolutely mad that a competitor has so much sway on the actual running of the sport itself. It's bizarre, and that needs to be resolved. But the problem is, from a team's point of view, an already established team's point of view, you're not going to sign anything that reduces your influence, because it's at your benefit and your company's benefit. Bizarre.
Moving on for this now. I think you may have just sorted out your headset. Your headset, I think, came out briefly there because you got very echoey, but you seem to have just sorted it there.
Back now?
Better. Cool. So let's move on from Andretti, because we're both very passionate about it and very much in agreement, and I think a lot of the people watching at home would be as well. Let's move on to talking about the next topic. We've got so many topics to kind of try and cover here from the off season, but one that's actually come up right now in the season is about the FIA president having interfered with a race result and made the penalty Fernando Alonso had go away. Now, what's your thoughts on this? I personally, at the time, thought the penalty was ridiculous, so I agreed with the decision, but I'm not sure I'm happy that we have someone who's not even supposed to be involved in the decision-making calling the shot on that. What's your thoughts?
For a sport to work at the highest level like this, you need clear consistency. And I think that's part of the issue you had, without trying to take it back to a subject we're all familiar with. You need consistency and a level playing field. You cannot fight for, especially with the amount of money that's involved in this, it's not fair on anyone's side to fight when somebody can change the rules at the last minute for the good of the show. Okay? It's like it's like Man United being 4 goals down to Man City. So the Premier League turn around at 60 minutes gone and say Man City's goal is going to be 2 meters wider because we want to make it a fairer. Like we want to increase the chance of there being a closer finish at the end of it.
I mean, a
It's
lot of old Premier League fans would argue that Fergie time was that, but anyway.
yeah, well, yeah, but you see what I mean. That
Yeah.
it feels to me like that,
Yeah.
and if the Premier League and football did that, we'd all be absolutely gobsmacked. So the fact that yes, I actually agree with you as well. I think that the initial, the penalty was harsh. I think the original penalty literally was that he didn't serve his penalty correctly because
the hand on the tyre.
it's the hand was on the tyre, but they weren't changing the tyre. They weren't stabilising the tyre because the car was down on the ground. This car still needed to be lifted up before they could change the tyre. So it wasn't like he was overly prepping to do the work once the penalty was served. So I agree with you. I think that is an. I don't get me wrong. If all 4 people had their hands on the top of the tyres ready to go, again, no issue with that. But then there was 2 guys in the middle or on the front wing, who were adjusting the wing levels while he was serving the penalty, so it didn't cost them any time in the pit stop. Yes, that's not okay, and that's touching. And I suppose one way of getting rid of that is just saying no one's allowed to touch the car. I get that. I do understand that. However, I think the penalty was ridiculous. For that, I think just a fine would have been fine. Perfectly okay. Yeah, exactly. Or like a kind of reprimand of, well, okay, we saw it. It didn't actually make any effect, but just don't do it again. And this is a lesson to everyone else on the grid: don't do it.
Rules clarification.
Yeah, would have been fine. But someone coming in who basically sits at the top desk and says, no, that's gonna take away Red Bull's biggest challenger from a decent points finish. Let's make sure he gets as many points as he can, and to kind of keep the interest of the show. Again, doesn't sit well with me. And no, I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah, and the FIA and all that have been big on the fact of we're not going to let any of this stuff like I'm going to use the term bullshittery again. Bullshittery, like what happened in 2021, happen again. And
a Massey effect.
Here we are, literally 2 years later almost, and it's happening again. It's ridiculous.
It is.
But yeah, again, see, we seem to be on the same level of most of these things at the moment. So
we're fans of F1. We want to see a good show, but we want to see a fair show. That's what we care about. That's all we want.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, DRS. So the rules on DRS have been changed. It now opened, or now opens, or always opened. It now can be opened from lap 2 of a race, and I believe it's after 1 lap from a safety car restart. Do correct me if I'm wrong on that, but what's your thoughts on this?
I mean, it allows someone to start attacking quicker. It gives the front car less time to build the gap and get away. It's a fair way to everybody of, hopefully improving the show. So I guess I'm fine with it. I didn't really have much of an issue with it how it was, if I'm completely honest. But sure, why not? Why not try it? If it's like bad, you can always change it back. But I don't think it's gonna. Yeah, it's non-offensive to me, that one. If I'm completely honest.
This is maybe our first little bit of a disagreement then.
Okay, I like this. This is good.
This is kind of based off of the race, which we will get into talking about in a minute. We will definitely talk about the race. Don't worry, stick around. We're going to talk about the race. There's just so much to cover on the off season. We want to go through some of that first. I feared beforehand, and I feel like it's coming to fruition now, is that we're just going to have a ton of DRS trains, and that seemed to be from this weekend that we just saw. A lot of the issues that we were having was a lot of DRS trains, people not being able to pass, and it actually making it worse of a show. Max, I mean, I'm going to spoil a little bit of the race for you here, people. If you haven't watched it, Max was over a second in 1 lap, so it did nothing to keep anyone on Max's tails, which I feel like was the reason they introduced this. Whether or not come Saudi Arabia this weekend, it'll be different, and I'll be looking red in the face. I don't know, but yeah, from what we just saw, I think we need to go back to the old way already. But you clearly like it, so it's interesting.
It's not that I like it, I just don't dislike it. I think realistically, when you get to the mid pack, the DRS train's going to be there because there's enough of a slipstream to keep them all there anyway. And if anyone loses a slipstream, they're going to get passed by the guy behind him. So realistically, I just don't think it makes that much difference. I think the DRS train we saw at this weekend would have been there no matter what rule that, whichever rule they'd gone for this year's or last year's on the DRS, if I'm completely honest. So that's my only real.
Lesser of a train though. Like I feel like it would have been more spread out. Like you would have eventually had some trains, but I don't think you'd have had so many cars getting together at the same time.
Yeah,
I think it would have been more spread out.
Problem is, I think with the DRS trains, eventually, the front car that doesn't have DRS, that's at the front of that train, the car behind him is eventually going to attack him at some point. They slow each other up, and the train goes backwards and picks up the next guy at the back. So realistically, I think anyone that does drop off, too early is probably going to come back into it anyway, unless they're really slow and then they don't deserve to be in the train. It's one of those things. And every single one of them that are in this DRS train has the opportunity to pit and go on to a different strategy. So, I
see your point. I do see your point.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Bahrain last year, and I'm looking at Bahrain this year, and I think Bahrain last year was better. But that's my only opinion. I'm trying to think if there's anything else from the off season that we haven't covered yet. There's a few rumours going round. Turkey potentially coming back. That'd be nice. Istanbul is a favourite track of mine.
Yeah.
Bring back Istanbul and Malaysia, and I'll be really happy.
Yes.
Just no more street circuits, and just spread them out around the world a bit more. We don't need to just make this an American series, which is what it seems to be like heading towards.
Well, I mean, all right, put it this way, right? If you think how close together the European races are, I know they're in different countries, but distance-wise, and then you go and look at America, where you've got Texas, Miami, and Las Vegas now, right? A lot of those European races are closer than the 3 American races now. So, in a proportion of landmass space, I'm not too fussed with them adding the extra American races. And if it helps bring America into the more interest into the sport, again, I'm actually okay with it. However, I don't want them to add any more after that. I think maybe they're just about get away with something in the northeast, like a New York kind of thing. Hopefully a permanent racetrack, not a street circuit. But I feel like I feel like I'm stretching a bit there. However, I'm okay with that as long as they don't take away absolute classics like Spa, Monza. I don't think I'd ever get rid of Monza because Ferrari would just leave. Or risk, and they're not going to risk Silverstone. But people like Spa, and the fact that Germany doesn't have a race in a minute is absolutely insane. I like with Audi coming in as well, that shocks me.
See, I'm very much against free races in America. My kind of thoughts on it. Okay, Europe is a lot of different countries closer together over a similar land space to what America may be. But then why don't we have multiple races in China? Why don't we have multiple races in Canada? Why don't we have multiple races in South America? Or why do we not have a single race in Africa? There's a lot of other things to take into consideration for that. And I get it. It sucks. America is a big country. I'm sorry. Rotate it each year. Have a different American track each year if that's the case. Or I'm not opposed to having two. Have one up on the top of America, one on the bottom, or something like that. I'm down for that. I think 3 is too many. I also think 2 in Italy is wrong. I know a lot of people are big fans of Imola.
I do love Imola.
Personally, I would be happy for Imola to be dropped in favour of Turkey or Malaysia. Something similar to that. I don't feel like a country that small needs to have 2 races. And though they're both classics, I'm very much, my opinions on the tracks that we race are a bit controversial. I'm also of the opinion that we should drop Monaco and have it as a standalone event away from the season. and replace that with something else. And you can have at the end of the year, everyone go to Monaco and have a blast round so you can do a fastest lap challenge, because that is effectively what Monaco is anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah, and make
I
it a night race because that'd be way cooler.
Yeah, exactly. You could make a proper event of it.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a much better way of doing it. Bring in proper tracks. It's what we want. We want proper race tracks. We don't want any more of these street circuits. Just make it proper.
Well,
Like,
the
and
other thing
potentially have
is,
two in Spain as well. Potentially
Mhm.
have two in Spain with
uh,
Barcelona and Madrid if they keep Barcelona.
I
I
think
personally think
that
they're going to be in Barcelona, but
yeah, I think they are. Yeah.
which again, I think it's a travesty because I think Barcelona, from what the looks of the
Well,
Madrid circuit, is going to Barcelona will be a much better circuit. But
yeah. I mean, the problem is if you keep going for these street circuits, what I'm worried about is actual purpose-built circuits are going to run out of lose money and there's lose interest in them and. That's literally their single purpose on Earth is to be a racetrack. Yes, they'll have the GT series going around them and Porsche Cups and all that stuff. Yes, granted, but F1 is the pinnacle, and that's what they surely should all be striving for. Every track, every purpose-built track around the world should surely be striving to have F1 at it. And having so many, like nearly 50% of the tracks now are street circuits, where you're shutting down an entire city for a weekend, baffles me.
you look at the fact that like the city of Las Vegas is trying to sue Formula One for the amount of like money they lost. Like, it's
businesses around there, yeah, it's crazy. I don't really know what's going to happen with that one either, but I love Imola Circuit, and they solved that issue last time by calling it, even though it's technically not in San Marino, they called it the San Marino Grand Prix. Technically, another country to be represented in the F1 calendar. But yeah, to have San Marino Grand Prix, which is essentially like an Andorra and a Luxembourg, like kind of very, very small micronation, and there's not a single race in Africa, is
ridiculous.
Again just madness. Again, like they've always argued that the track hasn't been. No tracks in Africa have been up to standard, security, safety-wise. Which don't get me wrong, safety is absolutely important. Totally agree with that. But
Kimalami, I can't pronounce.
Kyalami is in South Africa. That track has been improved and upgraded, and is now a circuit that can host F1, as far as I'm aware, on safety grounds. So I don't see why that isn't in.
Let's go there. Let's do it.
Let's
make
do
it a World Series.
I think it was 88 the last time that went there. I think so.
It's mental, isn't it? It's absolutely crazy. Yeah. My thoughts on tracks are very much. I do agree that the season is very European based, but majority of the fan base I think is still in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
I do think we need to spread it out more across the world. I've agreed with that. Like we've got Brazil and Mexico in South America. It's a great start. We've got Canada, and then we've got 3 American races. I think we need to lose one of those American Grand Prix. I personally would vote to chop Miami, but that's just me. I really like Austin, and I thought Las Vegas gave us a much better race than Miami did. So that's just my opinion. Suzuka has been given a new longer-term contract, so that's going to be sticking around. Australia has as well, as a Silverstone. So I think those are all big classics. I'm happy for those. I would potentially have liked to see Japan rotate between Suzuka and Fuji, but
that's exactly what I was going to say. I really loved that Fuji track. About, what was it, 2007, 2008? They went to Fuji.
I think the car would just be too big for it now, though. I think that's part of the problem.
It's a big purpose-built track. There's plenty of space.
It.
Yeah. No, that's a nice big wide track. No, I do miss Fuji. I think it's a shame. Don't get me wrong, Suzuka's a classic, and I don't want to see Suzuka go. But Fuji was epic. So that's
understand why we don't do more rotations.
Yeah, well, yeah.
We used to do that in Germany. It used to be between.
Yeah. And now there's none.
Yeah, it used to be between Hockenheim
and Nuremberg.
Nuremberg, thank you. Yeah, so why don't we just do that with a few more of these countries? Italy, just do it between Imola and Monza if you need to do it that way, and then.
But then they'll argue that you can't have a race season without Monza. That's what they're arguing.
Monza has been in every single season, I think, hasn't it? Along with Silverstone, those are like the 2 longest running tracks.
No, I don't think Silverstone has been. I think Monza is literally the only track that's done every year. I think Silverstone missed a couple.
Quite near the beginning, but
Silverstone was the first ever race, but they went to Donington Park for a bit.
And Brands Hatch.
And Brands Hatch, that was the other one.
So Monza, I mean, I think Monza should have a slot for life, in my opinion. But that's nothing I can do to say that. But yeah, there's a few tracks like you say with Spa. Spa's a classic. It should stay on the track, on the
Mm.
circuit, on the calendar.
On the F1 location circuit.
Yeah, yeah, it should do because there's certain tracks that are just classics and need to remain. But these other ones, like we can do rotation, like Barcelona and Jerez and Jerez. I
Correct.
keep calling it
Correct.
Perez. I don't know why. Jerez, Barcelona, Madrid. They could do a rotation thing with those tracks if they wanted.
And
Magny
Valencia.
Cause and Paul Ricard could have like a thing where they all mix round as well. Like, yeah, there's so many tracks out there, and I'm fed up with all these street circuits making our world smaller
Also,
and
it
smaller.
make each season a bit more interesting that you haven't been to that track in a couple of years, so the teams wouldn't have as much data on them. Therefore, probably throwing up a few more surprises as well.
I
Which
mean, look at
let's
Istanbul when we went there in the COVID time and all that, and bloody Lance Stroll sticks it on pole. Like, who would have seen that coming?
yeah, the original goat, obviously.
But yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the years to come. I'm liking the looks of the new Saudi Arabia track from the
That looks cool.
release they gave us.
What? The only thing I was worried about when I saw that, that they're saying there's going to be a corner that's like lifted.
Isn't it the first corner is like that or something like
And
that? It's gonna be really
well,
slow start.
it's like suspended up like a kind of motorway overpass kind of thing,
Yeah.
and it's like right up there. Right, two issues right with that. No fans can see it, like
Yeah.
that are actually at the circuit because there's no.
I imagine what they'll do is if it's like that, then they'll have the fans like on a tiered thing here, so opposite it, so you can
Well,
see up it kind of
the
thing.
video they showed was very high up in the air,
I mean, it
which
looks
don't
like
get
it goes up like proper like
Yeah.
a Mario Kart track.
Yeah, kind of thing. And like, yeah, so fans won't be able to sit around that corner. They'll be underneath. It looks like it kind of goes over the paddock, or kind of entertainment fan zone, whatever you want to call it. So that's kind of odd. And the second issue with that is from a safety point of view. I know there's the joke of like a car driving off the edge and like hurtling down hundreds of meters. I don't think. I'm sure they'll think about that, and there'll be massive barriers and stuff to stop that.
All
However,
I say is like Suzuka has a bridge that goes over the track. You got to remember that. That's already like they've got things in place for that kind of thing. They will have massive fuck off catch things and all sorts of stuff.
yes.
So it'll be plenty safe.
Apologies for his language, but yes.
Sorry. I mean, I've said
Yes.
bullshittery enough, but
I thought that was described nicely by the fact it's a new word, but yeah, sure. Right. But also like having a crane that big to lift the car off the track when it's stuck there and
those skyscraper cranes, won't it? They'll just have it just sat there permanently, and it'll just
yeah, but kind of
live
like
around that track, and that'll be its whole life.
it just seems like how glamorous they want it to look from those pictures. That having a giant crane there is gonna ruin a bit of that aesthetic.
They'll find
they
a
were
way
going
to hide
for.
it, won't they?
Yes, yeah. So yeah.
Maybe,
Anyway,
maybe what they haven't shown you is that round the sides there'll be like little platforms for people to stand on. There'll be little mini cranes there or something like that. I don't know why I felt the need to act out a crane, but yeah.
yeah. Nice. Yeah, I like it. I like it. Anyway, like I said, that's just like a couple of things that came to mind from a safety concern point of view. But either way, yeah. I'm sure they're very clever people who are organising this. I'm sure they would have thought about all of that. So, fine.
Yeah, exactly. Right, should we talk about the race then?
I think it's probably time. We probably should. Bear in mind we've got. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Still need to go and get our dinner and then get on our actual racing later. So let's start with the racing, shall we? I don't think you can guess who won the race. Like, you had no idea it was going to happen. Completely out of the blue. And his name was Max Verstappen. Yeah. Should we just end the season now? Just one race in, just like, well, this is done.
What was it? Some stupid stat like Max has won now 19, obviously spread over this season and last. 19 of the last 20 races, or 18 of the last 19. Obviously, Sainz being the one in Singapore, and then before that it was Perez at Baku, was it?
Yeah, I think I saw something like he's currently got the most amount of race wins in a season, and most race wins in a row or something like that, and it's like 12 or something.
Yeah.
and then in 4th place on the same chart as himself again, on 8 currently.
Yeah, yeah,
so,
yeah. Currently, yeah.
yeah, probably going to beat that again this year. Let's face it, because Perez seems to have lost all of his remaining confidence. Start crying.
Yeah, just crying in the corner, rocking back and forth. Yeah, so let's be completely honest. And this exciting season for second place, it's gonna hot up. So,
Good.
do you want me to quickly run through the qualifying?
All right, yeah. Just
Results?
give us like the top 20. Top 20. Yeah, give us the top 20. Just.
Well, that's all of them, Dave.
What I mean is like don't go into detail. Just give
No.
us the top 20.
I'll literally rattle them off. So
Okay,
it's Max on pole. This is going to be like a grid walk. So Max on pole with Leclerc joining him on the front row. I'll just check the stats. He was around 2.5 tenths back, just for reference. So didn't seem too bad at that point.
We had hope.
we had hopes. So Russell's third, Sainz fourth, Perez in the second Red Bull fifth. Either showing Max is great or he's rubbish. Alonso sixth, Norris and Piastri so seventh and eighth respectively. Seventh. You've got Hamilton in ninth, which is again will be very disappointing compared to Russell in third. Then you got Hulkenberg finishing out the top, rounding out the top 10. Great performance. Sonoda, Stroll 11th, 12th, Albon and Ricciardo 13th, 14th. Magnussen in the second half 15th. 16th is Bottas. 17th Zhou Guan Yu. 18th Logan Sargent, and then the B League for this season, or at least the start of it, you've got Ocon beating Gasly to 19th position in the very, very special edition of the Alpine Grand Prix.
Yes, I think
and that's qualifying.
A lot of that this year, but looks of their performance, not a good start. Okay. Well, we've already told you who the winner is, and we're going to basically just run this as if second place is going to be first going forward, I think. Let's start from 20th. Logan Sargent. He looked better, I thought, over the whole weekend. Had that problem with the steering wheel that really kind of, like, screwed his race, really, let's face it. Yeah,
he was literally only down there because of a mechanical issue.
Yeah, which it's nice to see for him. I can't count. I've lost count over the weekend how many times I heard the commentators say that he'd put on 5 kilograms in weight muscle. They loved that bloody joke on F1 TV. They kept saying it again.
Not so much on Sky that I was watching, but yeah, fair enough.
They kept making the whole joke of, oh, Logan Sargent's put on 5 kilograms over the winter break, and so have I, but his is in muscle. They made that joke so many times that by the end of it, I just like. But yeah, I mean, it's worked for him. I think his performance looked better, so I'm intrigued to see how he's going to perform in Saudi Arabia this weekend. Hopefully, he's going the right way, and he can save his seat this year, because I definitely think his seat is one of those at risk.
Yeah, especially with so many juniors looking very promising in F2. So yeah, I totally agree with that. The other person to have an issue in the Grand Prix was 19th position Valtteri Bottas. Multiple little bits and pieces throughout the race that he struggled with. I think it was contact on turn 1 or 2, I believe.
Like he was part of the Hulkenberg Stroll incident as well. Like he went to the back of Hulkenberg who went into the Stroll.
Yes, yeah. So that kind of explains also why he was maybe out of position, but realistically from qualifying, maybe only a couple of positions out of where he probably would have been, because that then leads us onto the B League of Ocon again beating Gasly to 17th position.
Well, let's not forget before we move on from Bottas about the horrendous pit stop.
Oh, yeah, he was trying to rival his Mercedes one that took like 3 weeks.
Apparently, what I heard is that the bolt, or whatever it is actually put into the wheel ahead of time for them. So they tried to put it in, machined that. That's why they had to take the tyre back into the pits to get that out, put a new one in, and then take it back round. What a kerfuffle.
At that point, you'd just take a new set of 4 tyres and put them on.
Maybe he didn't have them, who knows. Can you imagine if they then put 4 sets of bloody Guan Yu Zhou's tyres on and send it back out?
Well, that's what Mercedes did to George, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
The time before. Absolute madness. I really feel for Bottas because he now probably owns the 2 longest pit stops. Both him. Bless him. And 2 different teams as well. He moved teams and it's still happening. He must have the worst luck.
Yeah, poor bloke.
Bless him. But yeah, so yeah.
Alpine, go on.
Yes, Alpine. So, do you know what? I generally was worried for Ocon when Gasly went into that team because he seemed to always have more hype about him, Gasly, than Ocon. I've always felt. I know Ocon was like in the Mercedes program and Gasly was in the Red Bull program, and Gasly had that big getting thrown out of Red Bull back to Toro Rosso, AlphaTauri, whatever. I was worried that Gasly was going to come in and show Ocon, who's the number 1 Frenchman in the sport. And do you know what? He's beaten him in qualifying, he's beaten him in the race. So, yeah, good start for Ocon, actually. I think, realistically, until they get their upgrades...
Though, that last year Gasly did beat Ocon over the course of a whole season in his first season in that team, so...
Yes, true. Granted, but also, I think Ocon had more DNFs because of mechanical issues than any other driver on the grid. I'll also chuck that in there for defence.
But I will also come back at you with Alpine screwed over Gasly and Ocon ended up on the podium instead of him in Monaco.
Yes. Yeah, okay.
That right back at you there.
Serve, return.
I am a person who has been very critical of Gasly over the past. I will put my hand up to that. I think he's a better driver than Ocon. I think that over the course of this season, I will be proved right.
I would tend to
disagree.
No. Do you know what? I think realistically, put it this way: until they get their upgrades and that drops their so part of the main issue with Alpine that we've found so far is the reason why they're struggling so much is that they're about 10 kilograms overweight compared to the rest of the teams as a rough average. So that's like when everybody else is on low fuel, they're on like
no fuel.
Well, no, as in like it's the same as them carrying around like 15 laps of fuel to everybody else who's like on 1-2 for a qualifying weekend. Put it that way.
Yeah.
So that's when you think about qualifying and the fine margins in it, that's quite a bit. So once they really need to sort that out, and until they do, and they bring in the upgrades, which I think are supposed to be around 4 or 5, we're going to be referring to them in their own kind of like mini category of yes, they suck, but at least we can see who's the better of the 2 of them for the time being. And yeah, but at the same time, it's 1-0 to Ocon. So
we'll see.
There you go. There we go.
I'm still calling it right now. Here, first race of the season, Gasly beats him over the year.
Well, I love being a pain in your ass, so I'm going to go with it's going to be Ocon. Said it here.
We're going to keep going back and forth from this now until the whole rest of the season.
I'm going to get T-shirts printed with Team Ocon.
I want Team Gasly on then.
Fine.
I'll probably never wear it though.
No, I won't. Unless we're having that little bit of a conversation, we'll have a slight ad break. Then we'll put those T-shirts on and then take them back off again. But yes, anyway, we digress. After Ocon in 17th was Hülkenberg in 16th, which, bear in mind, he started 10th, would have been probably quite disappointing.
Yes, obviously first corner incident basically ruined his race. I know he got a little bit of a tap from the back from Bottas, but I still think he put himself in that position. He shouldn't have been there. Bad start. But on the bright side, that Haas is looking a lot better than we were expecting this year. So hopefully he's going to bounce back. I've put him into my fantasy team for this week, so we shall see if it was a mistake. But yes, I liked his pace. Great qualifying performance. We know he's great over 1 lap. He just needs to iron out these mistakes that keep happening in the races, really. But if Haas have now got a car he can fight over the races, I personally think he'll get some points this year.
Yeah, I definitely think he will, to be fair. And so not much to say in that. Let's go for 15th is Albon. And I think realistically, from what Williams would have been hoping, which I know Sargent was last, but we already spoke about the issues that he had. Albon didn't have the same level of issues and is only 15th, I think Williams will be very disappointed with that. Although apparently they were suffering with the same overheating issues as why they had to turn the engines down like Mercedes had, where Mercedes were hoping to be fighting with Red Bull at the front. I think Williams were really hoping to be fighting for points and like fairly good points, not just like one or two. So I think I'm hoping, and we'll probably find out this weekend, if they've sorted that out yet, to try and get some more performance out of that car.
Yeah,
And hopefully he's not a general 15th place driver for this year.
Yeah, fingers crossed for him. It's not, especially after last year's heroics throughout the entire season. Apparently, those heat issues are also causing electrical issues on the Williams. If you actually watch the replays, you can see as he's driving down the straight, Alex Albon's steering wheel just constantly like resetting itself. So definitely they were having a number of issues with the heat issues there, which doesn't bode well for both Mercedes and Williams going into this weekend when the race is expected to be warmer. So we'll see how they combat that this weekend, as you said.
We shall. Moving swiftly on. Probably the most interesting story to come out of the race itself. You have the two Racing Bulls. Hang on. Visa Cash App Racing Bulls brackets VCarb. You've got
VCarb, or are we going with Racing Bulls? What are we going with here?
Oh, I don't know. You're kind of more. I'll let you. Dealer's choice. You pick.
I think the general consensus from all the commentary teams and the other like YouTubers out there is we're going with Racing Bulls.
Yeah, I agree. It sounds a lot better.
Nicer.
VCarb sounds like some ad that's popped up to try and make you lose weight.
It sounds like a pill, doesn't it? You take to.
Yeah. I'm gonna pop up VCarb. Yeah, sure. Right. So Racing Bulls. You have Ricciardo finishing dramatically ahead of Tsunoda. But the Tsunoda was not very happy about it.
That is an understatement.
Let's just run through the facts. So Ricciardo was on a slightly different strategy. He was quicker behind. He had proven that as he closed up to the back of Tsunoda, who was trying to get past Magnussen in 12th and therefore carry on to go and get points from Stroll in 10th. But Ricciardo was coming up behind quicker. They felt like he had the best chance of doing said thing. So they asked Tsunoda to let Ricciardo through because he couldn't get past Magnussen. There was a very fine window where that was going to work, and Tsunoda didn't initially do it, waiting an extra lap before actually letting Ricciardo through at actually a point in the track that wasn't ideal for either of them in keeping momentum to a point where they're able to, like I said, go and hunt down Magnussen as well. Then at the drama at the end of the race,
well, before that as well, they then also had Max Verstappen lap them just after that, really ruining any chance.
Also really didn't help. Yeah, it just basically it's that. Unfortunately for Tsunoda, that is a situation where if he'd actually let Ricciardo go through when they told him to, a lot of those issues that we just mentioned there wouldn't have been as bad, and Ricciardo might have had a chance, and also then Tsunoda might have had a chance of following them through as well, or picking up on any scraps of a fight between the two of them. So he's kind of screwed not only his teammate over, but also himself.
And the team as a whole, really.
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, that's a given with the two. But yes, then you've got after the race, just you can go through all the emotion side of it. Then you've got at the end of the race, they're on the cool down lap from I never saw how far back, but Tsunoda sent it into turn 6, which is a hairpin.
He sent it like a Kobayashi dive bomb at Monaco. That's what he sent it like. There was no way he was going to like stop that. He was just going in, no matter what.
And let's remind yourselves, that's the cool down lap. You know, he's absolutely sent it like his life depends on it, locked up the wheels, gone wide into that corner. Ricciardo's just turned the corner and he's locked up so badly that Ricciardo, just cruising round, went back ahead of him briefly, as Tsunoda went right up along the outside of him, like millimeters away from the car, and damaging the two cars from the same team on a cool down lap.
Yeah, so I didn't know there was actually damage.
No, millimeters from damage.
Millimeters from damage, yeah. I mean, I think Daniel Ricciardo described it best when he's immaturity. It's just flat out immaturity, and I think what Yuki's done there is basically gone, Red Bull, don't take me, because I cannot handle my emotions. Can you
Well,
imagine if he did that to Max Verstappen? The
yeah,
fucking
that's
shit that
exactly what I
would
was
go
gonna say.
down. Like, come
Yeah,
on. I literally do not understand what went through his head and why he ever thought that was a good thing. I'm actually really surprised the FIA haven't pulled them up on it
mm.
for like bad driving conduct or something like that because it's dangerous. At the end of the day, it's dangerous.
Right, driving standards. Yeah,
Yeah, it's absolutely
yeah.
ridiculous. The thing is, on the cool down lap as well, you start to have marshals coming onto the track
Hmm.
and things like that. So he goes and smashes into Ricardo, and they could bloody wipe out into some marshals. You just absolute ludicrousy, absolute ludicrousy.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
And
So,
all of it as well over no points. Like if he was
yeah,
playing for
exactly.
10th or something like that, I could understand it a bit more. But for 13th and 12th, like seriously, it's the first race of the year. Ricardo's probably not getting any points, even if he gets ahead of you and gets past Magnussen, because Joe was still, I think, 20 seconds up the road. So, like, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Like, you will finish below him on on a thing, yeah, okay. It will also show that he has on a better tyre, and like, it's just, yeah, I do not understand the thinking there. Yeah,
Totally agree. So, and all they've done so far as we're aware, is just swept it under the carpet. Hopefully, no one will bring it up again. I'm sure it'll get brought up lots.
every press thing I've seen so far, I've asked him about it.
Uh, yeah, cool. Yeah, I thought as much. I thought this would be. So, yeah, okay. Anyway, run out of time. So, like I said,
Yes,
obviously you probably established Magnussen 12th. You know, quite a surprise in a good way for Haas. I think you agree.
I
For
definitely
like,
agree. He started
yeah.
quite far back. Where was he in the qualifying again? It was like 17th or something. Like
Oh,
he
let
was
me
right near
double
the back,
check
wasn't he?
for you. Qualifying results. We have just been through it, but he didn't. He started 15th.
Okay, so a slight improvement, but the thing is with Haas, all of last season we would see them qualify and then just drop back. So he's actually gone forward, which
Yeah.
yes, you could argue Bottas, Hulkenberg, and Sargent all had issues.
Yep.
Otherwise, he'd still have been 15th. But he stayed there,
You
which
got to
is
be
an
in it to win it.
improvement. Exactly. At the very least, he's stayed roughly where his net position would have been, and he's moved up as a result of not getting into incidents like his
Yep.
teammate did. Just outside the points. One of the better performances I've seen from Magnussen since he came back. Obviously, that first race in Bahrain when he came back was really good, and then let's not forget the Brazil pole. That was amazing as well. But
Yep.
other than that, I've got to be honest with you, I was very surprised when he was renewed last year. I thought that he would be gone. I definitely think one of them is going to be going for Behrman next year. I'd be very surprised if Ferrari don't promote Behrman into one of those Haas seats if they can. If Haas let them, Haas might have decided they're not doing that game anymore. I don't know, but yeah, I I think one of the Haas boys goes this year, and I think it's whoever performs worse. So.
I mean, let's remember. For your information, Magnussen is the cheapest driver in the fantasy leagues, so that kind of shows you where the general consensus of where he should be is.
Is he
Uh,
cheaper than Sargent? I think Sargent might be the cheapest.
no, I think he's the cheapest. 'Cause I think Williams is a better car, so
Yeah,
it's in their kind of opinion. So yeah.
yeah.
So from his fantasy point of view, if nothing else, he's well outperformed that. So fair play to Magnussen on that one. You've got Zhou Guanyu and the last of the non-points finishers in 11th place.
Great result. Great result for them. I think Joe was good all weekend. I think he was pretty much on Bottas's pace. Wasn't far off
Mhm.
him. I would like to have seen what Bottas would have done if he hadn't had his incident. Would he have got into the points? I don't know, but I don't think anyone from watching pre-season testing was thinking Sauber were going to be on the edge of the points in the first race of the year. So yeah, full credit to him.
Oh, I totally agree. What do you think about their livery? Something a bit different for this year?
I hate it. I absolutely hate it. Not as much as I hate Alpine's livery, but at least I'm not going to be looking at that much. So
No, I think it's one of those. People keep reminding me that it's like on the F1 game when someone creates their own livery and they use, because obviously there's Aston Martin now in green, but they're like, yeah, it's called like really vibrant green and black, and it's like that's what keeps getting brought up. So, and I can see where they're coming from in that. I
I
don't
just wish F1 had
hate
brought in a
it.
rule where a certain amount of the car had to be painted, and that we had
Mm,
that color on that car on a majority of it, because that would look quite nice.
mm.
I think that would be different. I think I'd then be like, okay, yeah, maybe. But as it is at the moment, I'm just like, nah. Yeah.
I mean, I can't see them bringing in a rule like that, but then again, were getting like really specific on where numbers must be displayed and things like that. So you never know. You never know. They, yeah, rather than dealing with inconsistencies in the rules, maybe that's what they'll start worrying
I
about.
mean,
So
do you know what? At the end of the day, when people used to get into watching Formula One and stuff, if you think back to when we started watching in the early 90s and stuff, you had all the array of colours on the car. When I was a kid, I didn't fucking know what the teams' names were. I supported McLaren because it said my name on the side of the car originally. And then I moved to Jaguar because they were the green car, and I liked the green car, and I didn't want to support Michael Schumacher, even though Ferrari was my Ferrari, even though red was my favourite colour, because Michael Schumacher was winning all the time. So I ended up opting for the underdog, and I supported Jaguar. But nowadays, people go, you think you're a kid, you go watch it. Oh, I like the black car. Which one? Like, honestly, which one? Because you go back to when we used to watch it. You had orange cars, yellow cars, red cars. It had everything. Like, even had a fucking car that had the whole world on it. Let's not forget the
yeah,
Hollow Earth Dream, whatever it was.
yeah,
Just look at the grid now, and it's just like, even the Ferrari's not the proper shade of red anymore. It's ridiculous.
yeah. That's actually a very good point. But anyway, we could rant about that
Yeah,
forever.
sorry.
Let's get through this. So, Lance Stroll gets a point. I think realistically, from my opinion, I think that's very disappointing for an Aston Martin that would have been hoping to be, pushing,
I
you know,
disagree.
a bit higher than that. How do you disagree?
Spun facing the wrong way, it goes to the back of the grid on lap one, comes back to finish 10th. I think this is actually a ridiculously good weekend for Stroll and one of his better drives.
Well, to be fair, my argument is more over Aston Martin as a whole because the ninth place was Alonso. So I think as a whole, where their car is in that race, and I think they were also suffering from that Mercedes issue of overheating. But I think as a whole, where Aston Martin started last year, if you compare it to that, where they are now, fighting or getting ninth and 10th, yeah, I agree with you actually. That's a very good point. Being half spun and sort of getting back to 10th, fair play on Stroll's side of things. But I think Aston Martin as a whole, being ninth and 10th, will be disappointed with that, but with hope they'll be higher up in the coming races.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. You look at the grid and where you thought they were going to be at the beginning. I at least expected them to be about fifth. So to
Yeah,
be at the end of the points, yeah, it's not where Aston Martin want to be. Hopefully, it spurs them on to improve the car.
it does. And then that leaves, what, 4 teams? Yeah, four more teams taking the top 8 spots. So in 8th place is Piastri.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was a bit disappointed. I actually expected a bit better from Oscar. You look at the drivers ahead of him, and you hear me say that, and you think, really, ridiculous. But no, I think he showed a lot of potential over the last year, and I expected them to take a bit of a step forward. Whether or not that McLaren car is just holding them back at the moment, we don't know. But yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed. I expected Oscar to be higher, personally.
Yeah, I think where the McLaren finished last year to where they are now, I think they'll be disappointed. Again, I've said it multiple times, they've got the Mercedes engine, so who knows, there might have been an issue with that. And maybe they'll be quicker. But I think it's though, like at the same time, how much higher are they going to go? Because ahead of them are Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull. So it's like, well,
It is, as I say, it gets to be a
I don't
point
know.
where you're like, it's ridiculous. You're saying he should be higher, like finishing higher,
Yeah,
but
because someone's got to finish there.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's not
and
necessarily a bad. Yeah, he stayed on the lead lap.
yeah,
Which bear in
absolutely.
mind, the Red Bulls won by 25 seconds to the next car. Spoiler alert. To finish 56 seconds behind, fit within that kind of gap, isn't too bad for like such a dominant car. So
Yeah, I do see your point. I do think though, I think McLaren would have been hoping for one of their
I would have
cars
been
to fight
hoping
for the
for more.
podium.
Sure.
So
It's a cautious start, but it's points.
yeah, exactly. It's
So,
much better than
which
they
is
did
way
last
better
year.
than, yeah, way better. Not better than where they finished last season, but a hell of a lot better than when they started it. So,
Yeah, and imagine if they can make
that's
the same jump again this year,
agreed. Totally,
then
totally agreed. Yeah. Which swiftly moves on. 7th place, Lewis Hamilton. 50 seconds
this
off,
was a
off the
shock
lead.
for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if Mercedes are already favouring George. I know Lewis did have some issues with his seat and his engine overheating, seat being
And
loose.
stuck in the DRS train.
Yeah, so I do know he had some issues there. I was surprised that he qualified where he did, to be honest with you. I thought he would be better. I expected him to be the lead Mercedes. I expected him to finish fifth, fourth. So for him to finish seventh, I think it's a bit of a disappointment for Lewis, to be honest with you.
I would tend to agree with you. Yeah, like I said, he started ninth, which is the first disappointment of his weekend. He moved up to seventh in a very competitive upper midfield, lower top end of the grid. So I suppose again, someone's got to finish there. So it's an improvement, I guess, in a DRS affected trained race. However, yeah, with Russell finishing fifth, spoiler alert, it's I think he'll be very disappointed in that. But again, it's some points to get you started. It's better than getting like taking a wild dive and losing everything and like crashing out the race. So also that reminds me, little side note, I think it's the first time in a very 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 long time that, or maybe even ever, that the first race of the year hasn't had a single DNF. Everybody finished.
Yeah, that's never happened before. They were
Yeah,
saying on F1 TV before, which is
there you go.
incredible. It's one of those
Little,
things you
little
feel bad for
fruity
drivers
fact.
like Guan Yu Zhou, who even last year that would have been points for him, because someone would have DNF'd or something like that. So yeah,
Also
you've got
true.
to feel bad for those drivers that were just on the cusp of the points that were in the most reliable season ever, apparently. But let's see
Apparently
if that
so.
continues going into the next Grand Prix, shall we?
Very true. So we've got disappointed Hamilton in seventh. You got Norris in sixth with the lead McLaren. Again, we've kind of touched on a lot of McLaren already now. He's beaten his teammate. I suppose that's kind of the first barometer you'd use. So fair play to Lando. Kind of always expected that, to be fair, though. And like I said, way, way better than the start last year. Not as happy as the end of last season. So I don't know. I think it, like I said, it's a solid start, but nothing shockingly amazing.
Yeah, I do have to do basically 100% agree with that.
Yeah,
Moving on,
but
George
a solid
Russell.
drive.
Yeah, solid
Yes,
drive. Yeah,
solid drive.
George Russell got to be disappointed with fifth. I think for him, I think he showed he had the pace to be battling with Sainz for third. And the Mercedes engine, I think, is what caused the issues, and he started to drop back as a result of having issues with that and the overheating side of it. But looked promising, I think, for Mercedes. If they can sort out that overheating issue, like George showed he had the pace, and if that car has the pace again this weekend at Saudi Arabia, then they could be in a proper fight with Ferrari this year, which means we'll just forget about Red Bull and start the championship from third.
Yeah, so
Because
I disagree with you slightly on that.
sure.
I think George would be very encouraged by that. I think the first thing you need to do is beat your teammate. His teammate is the 7 times world champion, the most successful driver of all time in F1, and he's, let's be honest, given him quite the lesson this weekend. If I'm completely honest, he started the race running in second at one point. And like you say, constantly dealing with overheating engines affecting electrics as well at the same time. I think that, with every bit of promise he showed, is a fantastic weekend for George. Yes, he will be disappointed with the final result of fifth, bear in mind where he was, but I think you've got to look at the bigger picture and the longer game in this, that if they can sort those issues out, which I'm very sure they will, whether they'll be Red Bull pace, not so sure. But in that fight for third place you just mentioned, I think Russell's given a very, very good showing in the first race of the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, I think it'll be interesting to see if Mercedes can sort out those heating issues this weekend and be in a fight with Ferrari and possibly Perez. Again, he's not really
Ferrari and
showing the pace
Perez.
of Max, is he? So yeah, we'll just ignore Max Verstappen and then just start it from second. I saw a funny TikTok earlier where someone just got a pen and just marking
Yeah.
out Max and first and just
Yeah.
the gap and
Yeah,
everything.
I saw that.
I think maybe that's just what we need to do this year.
Yeah. And I also saw a meme come out this week where it was like the last time I think Max DNF'd, like mechanically, and it was like Max Verstappen's out of the Grand Prix, he's not going to finish it. And then it just cut to like everyone just cheering. Oh.
Yeah, I would absolutely love it if that was to happen in Saudi Arabia this weekend.
Obviously, we don't wish any harm to him.
No.
It's more merely a results thing. Would be nice. We said the same. Yeah.
Right,
basically, yeah.
we need to wrap this up because we're approaching race
Yes,
time. So let's just
we are.
quickly go through Ferrari. Charles Leclerc had front brake issues causing
Yes,
lockups.
yes.
He actually said it wasn't a mechanical fault. He just didn't really know what was causing it, but he didn't think it was mechanical. He just needs to get their heads around it. So we'll see if they've resolved that for this weekend. Carlos Sainz, fantastic drive. One of his best, I think. He was just carving up the field. 100% a driver trying to advertise himself, I think, right now. And yeah, my
What?
fiance's comments of they always perform better when they're about to lose a seat continues.
Yeah. What an advert that is to any new team that's thinking about getting Carlos Sainz. Wow. Like Leclerc is supposed to be the next big thing. Like, I know obviously Max is there. And they're very like similar age, I think. But Leclerc is supposed to be this like wonder kid, and to be fair, like, Sainz is in exactly the same car. Whatever issues Leclerc was having, if it wasn't mechanical, Sainz was in the same boat and just dealt with it better, if nothing else. And you know what?
Issue.
Could possibly be, but Sainz had to go past, actually physically overtake Leclerc twice because Ferrari tried to. They pitted Leclerc, so he came out ahead of Sainz. So they tried to manufacture that one, and Sainz got back past again. So do you know what? I am absolutely.
Didn't say the magic word.
He was like, "Nice try, but watch this." No. The smooth operator was firing on all cylinders. What a drive! Couldn't agree more. Yeah, brilliant.
Right, bring us to the last two. Sergio Perez. And
that's all we got time for. Thank you very much.
Sergio Perez. Yes, he's finished second, but not a good weekend. Poor qualifying. Took him a while to get up to second as well, when you consider how dominant that car is, that his teammate finished 22 seconds up the road from him. He's got to do something.
Is there, other than Sargent and Albon and Bottas and Zhou, who that was mechanically caused their gap, was there anyone else, teammate to teammate, that had as big a gap as that?
I don't think so. No.
Not even close.
No, I'm just looking.
Not even close.
Alonso to Stroll, but again, Stroll had that first lap instance. So yeah, no.
Yep, that's incident affected. Not even close.
Literally the biggest gap between teammates.
In the most dominant car, which is supposed to be the easiest to drive.
Yeah, he needs to sort it out, or he's not going to be there next year.
He is double the gap from last year as well.
Yeah,
double the gap.
My thoughts perfectly clear on where I stand with Perez in this seat.
He's wasting a seat for a younger driver, personally, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I've said it many times, so I'm not going to go into another Perez dissing.
Not saying I don't want Perez in the sport. I think Perez has actually do a really good job as a experienced driver in one of the lower teams. I do generally think that, but he went up to a big team, got his chance, fair play. Was about to lose his seat, got probably the best seat in the house, and had his chance. Hasn't really done too much with it. He's got a few race wins, good for him. But yeah, I think that seat needs. They need to give someone like Albon, and when they were giving Albon and Gasly and Kvyat chances in that top team, that's what they need to go back to doing. Because it was more exciting and fun because there's more crashes, which is hilarious. But also, it was finding the next big name that's going to be there for a long time and be successful for the future.
Yeah, exactly. I am very interested to see what happens with that seat, but I fully do not expect Perez to be in it next year unless for some reason Max does go to Merc and we've got some kind of situation where they're like, well, we need some consistency, even though I think you could put Logan Sargent in that car and he'd probably do as good a job. As I said, I wasn't going to diss Perez. Right.
I baited you into that, to be fair.
You did. You definitely baited me into that one.
I did. That's what you have me for.
I'll cancel my holiday to Mexico now.
I would. To be fair, I really would.
No. Right. Let's move on to Max Verstappen. And what can I say? But it's another Max masterclass, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else to add to
that? Other than the fact that I know we obviously give him a lot of stick in the sense he's in the best car, most dominant car, but my God, that guy can drive. Fair, like, it's the same way. You say it's the biggest gap between teammates. Yes, you can berate Perez as much as you want for that. But also, you need to look at the other side of it as Max is doing the nuts, doing the business, and doing that and putting Perez in that position in the first place by not making a mistake, driving that car insanely fast, and half the time making jokes with his team at the same time, which is just kind of a bit insulting to the rest of the team, which, it's... But you can't fault his driving at the minute. He's in such a rich vein of form. He's in that prime position of when Lewis won 5, when Michael won 5, when Vettel got 4. Well, the three after Vettel's first one was really tight, but the other 3 where he dominated, that it's exactly in that kind of scenario that we're in, and you just
on 26.
it's one of those things you just actually physically cannot think how he's not going to win a race week to week. Like, it's literally like, if he, even when he doesn't get pole, it's a shock. And like, I know he didn't get pole. No, Leclerc got quite a few poles last year and everything, but just not seeing him in the number 1 spot is just crazy at the minute. And yes, as much as we don't like it, you've got to take your hat off. Like, fair play to the guy. Fair,
Absolutely.
Fair play.
And, he's potentially killed 4 drivers' careers over the years. So, in the start of Kvyat, Gasly, Albon, and now probably Perez, let's face it. Gasly and Albon, are still in the sport. I'm not saying their careers are over. I'm just saying he's potentially killed them at, like, the big teams kind of thing. Yeah, the man's an absolute monster, and I hate him. I want more competitive racing, and he's ruining that for me. So yeah, but no. Anyway, right, that's all for today. We will be live racing. I'm actually going to push back the start time though. We start at like 1:45, so we've still got a bit of time to have some food beforehand. So
great.
We'll do 7:45 to try and start. And we'll be on Twitch, so you can follow me. I am Umilius on Twitch, and he is Bowser_49. There is also Wibsy on Twitch as well. You can follow him if you want. He will eventually show up for one of these. I'm positive. I'll drag him here kicking and screaming if I have to get him on one of these videos. Maybe we can wangle him into the driver predictions for next year's championship or something like that. But yeah, we'll see you over there at around about 7:45/8 o'clock-ish, that kind of time. Basically, an hour. So yeah, we'll see you then. Thank you very much for coming by for now, and